Hello, this is Money Matters. I'm David Crowell from Mortgage Network, and this is Emily Johnson from Polaris Capital. And we are here, as we are most weeks, to try and take large world happenings and national happenings on the economic front, on the financial front, and try to make a little sense of them, and then draw them down to Beaufort County and Hilton Head and Bluffton, and to look at the impact locally. So today we've got lots of big topics. We've got the interaction of healthcare reform and possible tax reform on the big stage, and we've got the local real estate markets, which are moving fast. So we've got some interesting topics, but let's start always with the financial markets and what they've done. We missed last week, so we've got 2 weeks of catching up. Emily, what's been going on in the financial markets?
Okay, well, we've actually had an exciting couple of weeks because, in part, tying it into what's going on with the healthcare bill and with politics, we've actually had an exciting few weeks, a little bit more exciting than we had leading up to this, because we actually had some big down days, which was a surprise. But by and large, the market's just been going along nicely in general on a sideways trajectory for the last couple of weeks, and we're about to end the quarter, this first quarter, on a very positive note. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me right this second, but on a very positive note, pretty much across the board, definitely with the Dow, S&P, and the NASDAQ. So that's been a positive and not necessarily much of a surprise. There's still some concern that we're on the toppy end of this, meaning in an overbought position, but there's nobody that's running for the hills necessarily. Even those that don't particularly like Trump and his policies aren't really talking with their pocketbooks and taking money out of the markets. So there's still lots and lots of cash to be deployed, and a relatively small number of places to put it. So by and large, the market's been healthy. We'll see where we go into the second quarter of the year, summertime. We'll see if we get to the whole sell in May and stay away, as we've had in some previous years. There's also some threats on the front as we're looking, just starting this week with, actually, I guess it's been a few weeks, with the concern about the Russian debacle and what their interaction might have been with the presidential election. That actually could ruffle the market feathers a little bit. So that'll be interesting to watch over the next weeks or months. I don't know how long that'll last, but that'll definitely be interesting to watch. So that is probably the most dominant threat. Interestingly, Brexit, of course, is starting in its official move, and that's been relatively positive. Europe in general has actually had a pretty good quarter, which is somewhat surprising given the concerns that we had leading into this quarter. But by and large, it's been pretty healthy. So there's definitely money flowing in overseas. There's money flowing in domestically. That's sort of the state of the equity markets as it stands right now. So
the big moves, if you start with Brexit, if you start with the political environment, and then you spin out from there, basically there are a lot of big economic cards on the table, big chessmen on the table. The healthcare bill, which you've seen debated ferociously, it's gone down to the Republican bill has gone down to a temporary defeat at the moment. But let's stay out of the politics. There's plenty of juicy politics to get into, but keeping out of the politics and just looking at the issue. Remember always that the healthcare discussion is about 18% of the entire U.S. economy. It's a massive discussion. It dwarfs almost anything else that's talked about. The only thing that's on a par with healthcare as a national conversation would be the economic impact of going to war. There's nothing quite as big as healthcare. The issues at stake, obviously, are starting to crystallize out. The big majority of the Senate, something like 70%, and the overwhelming majority of the House, something like 80%, are agreed, and the President is agreed, that a universal form of health care is absolutely necessary for the United States. In other words, everybody needs to get covered. The reason that they all agree is for reasons of compassion and for reasons of economics. It, by law, is already the case that somebody who does not have health care still gets treatment through our local hospital system, and that's a right by law. The hospital has to open its doors. So everyone ends up paying. The problem is, of course, that emergency room health care is the most expensive form of health care because the ailment or the condition of the patient is already advanced. It's already an in-crisis situation.
And to put that in market terms, and just one quick divergence, if you have any questions about how the healthcare bill would have an impact on patients, on care, whatever, just look at where the financial market sectors trend during this discussion. For example, hospitals. If hospital stocks are going to be negatively impacted, or hospitals are going to be negatively impacted, that sector of the market immediately goes down in anticipation that this bill is going to have that impact. So, and markets are always forward-looking. So if you want a quick and dirty or almost a symbolic way of looking at what is going to be the impact of this, and you don't want to read The Economist or 500 articles in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal, then you could actually just take a quick and dirty over a week span of what's going on with the various sectors that are related to this, and you'd know everything you need to know. It's fascinating, and it's happening
really
fast.
And it's happening. It is happening extremely fast. The other major sectors, the hospital. So there's the American Hospital Association.
Pharma.
You have big pharma. What's the impact of any bill going to be on big pharma? Thirdly, you have the physicians and their lobbying groups and their associations. So there are three of the blocks.
And then by default, biotech. They're
exactly, and then you have the
insurance, managed care,
the huge insurance lobby, and what it comes down to again and again and again is stripping politics aside, is what is the most effective administrative system to deliver cost-beneficial health care to everyone, to every citizen of the country. So the thing that I'd like to sort of focus on and repeat is that that's already agreed. You can see the froth in the debate and the anger and the to's and fro's, but the argument's already over. There's only a tiny number of people in the Freedom Caucus and another tiny number of senators who are truly outside the mainstream of our government that put forth the idea that health care is a choice, and that if somebody doesn't want to buy it, then the devil take the hindmost. They can get sick and die on the side of the road. The fact of the matter is, we have to look after them anyway.
Correct.
So it's fascinating.
Well, and what's also fascinating, of course, is and again, not stressing the political, but of course, when this bill failed, our president was saying, well, this is going to implode anyway. Yeah. So, and it probably will, but what's interesting, and just on an anecdotal level, and I don't know if you're watching, if you happen to have private insurance through Obamacare, which is basically Blue Cross Blue Shield, gold, silver, and bronze, which I'm sure lots of people have. But if you're under 65 and you have a public policy, or I'm sorry, a private plan that's one of the Obamacare plans, you sign up and you say, yes, I agree that everything that I'm putting on here is correct and to the best of my knowledge, and I'm being honest. Therefore, I'm going to pay X for my health insurance. Well, eventually, you're supposed to show some sort of evidence that is actually what your income is, so that you can get whatever, perhaps a reduced cost, discounted
your
plan.
subsidy.
Your subsidy. You're supposed to show evidence of that. Well, I know at least 2 people that are on these plans that are healthy, under sort of in the 40s range, and they've received notice saying, oh no, you don't actually need to send in evidence of your income right now. And you'd have to sort of take it one step from there and say, well, perhaps that's because there is a dearth of healthy younger people on those plans, and that's why. So I think that
which then takes us round
basically means they're skewing numbers. They're skewing numbers. They're not having to actually show. So to me, that is an argument that this actually does look like it could implode, but they're obviously fighting it a little bit on the other side by trying to keep these younger healthies in there to keep the numbers right, except those are where the biggest subsidies are, which is going to be the most expensive. So it's fascinating.
It's a fascinating argument. It doesn't work if people can't afford it, but it doesn't work unless the pool includes everybody.
And then you've got everybody looking for their self-interest in the whole thing, and so that means people are going to perhaps fib a little bit on the applications.
But the necessity of an entire pool of people, which means all the young people who are relatively healthier, to counterbalance older people who are healthcare consumers.
And that balance isn't there right now.
It's not there right now.
Well, I know we have to take a quick break, so we'll be right back in just a minute with more Money Matters. Please stick with us.